welcome to the October meeting of the Salem Keizer Transit Board. This evening's agenda includes announcements and changes to the agenda. We don't have any presentations, but we do have a period of public comments. And then we have two items on our consent calendar, which include approval of the minutes for the September 22nd meeting and routine business items action. And then we have two action items this evening. One is approval of the contract between the Salem Area Mass Transit District and Tyler Technology for Consolidated Finance and Human Resources software replacement, and to adopt the proposed fiscal year 2018 budget calendar. Then we will have reports, and that will conclude our meeting. With that, I will call the meeting to order and ask Director Bush to lead us in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any announcements or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we will move on to public comment. And at this time, I'd like to call on Steve Dickey to introduce a guest that we have this evening.
So this evening, I'm pleased to introduce to you Irina Kupchak. She is from Keizer, and she is here as a State Department fellow with the United States State Department and is visiting Salem for about 4.5 weeks to learn about our systems, but I will let her tell you a little bit more about her visit and the things that she's doing. So,
Would you mind checking your mic?
thank you, Mike. I am not hearing anything. Yeah, it's important. We'll just get it on my microphone. No, there you go.
Good evening. Very nice to meet you. My name is Irina, and I am here as a part of Professional Fellows Program. And I do believe that everyone has a contribution to their country to implement some progressive changes. And it's my main motivation and goal why I am here. I'm here to learn profound American experience and to implement best practices in Ukraine. I work from Parliament of Ukraine as an advisor of the Member of Parliament at the Committee on Budget, and we study different questions, not just strictly connected with the budget code and the loan budget, but also a lot, and many others. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to be here, to meet all these beautiful and very professional people. So it's a great honor for me to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're very pleased that you have an opportunity to visit our organization.
Yes, thank you.
And we are still in the period for public comment. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to say anything? Yes, sir.
This one? Okay. My name is Steiner, and I'm from Seattle. And through the years, I've been coming down to see Mom and using you guys' bus system. And recently, things just kind of a little upset me a little bit of the decisions at Shemekinah College, how you guys had the bus system all working like clockwork, and all of a sudden now it's blown apart. They have to walk across, all the way across. It's the time of season, it's cold. You know, people, you're trying to promote people to ride the bus, and I don't understand the reasoning on that. And then there's a bus stop down by the parkade that people use the parkade to park the car, and they use the bus to get to work, save on gas, whatever they do. And the other day I noticed, sitting there waiting for the bus downtown here, I don't know what are you supposed to fraternize while you guys are on the job, the bus drivers? Anyways, just notice that. Those are the things. I'm trying to make this place happy for me, and because I come from a happier place. And right now, it's trying to stay it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I can add a little bit of information about Chemeketa Community College. So what he's talking about is we used to have all the buses parked right up front. Well, we can't do that anymore. That's not our choice. It impacted us by Chemeketa. So we have them in a couple different spots. For us, it's a temporary solution until we can figure out a better process. We've worked with the college. We've been bringing buses there, trying to find the right staging area. It's not very good. He is right. It's not very good right now, but we don't have a good solution. But I actually talked with someone from Chemeketa earlier this week, said it's not working, and I think they know it. We're getting complaints from riders, so it is an issue we are working on.
What was their reasoning?
There was safety issues. We couldn't get all the buses into the turnabout, and so it required us to make changes because we have a lot of buses going in there. So since they all can't get in there at the same spot, we still have some up front, but we have moved. There's 2 other locations now, so transferring is not as easy depending on which route you go.
Director Hamill?
Right. Yeah, I was directly impacted by that myself. And you're right, it's not a happy situation. I used that transfer stop out in front of Building 2 at Chemeketa all last year. And indeed, sometimes the buses got to the point where they were double parked because, if they were able to stay on schedule, they'd arrive sequentially. But we know how that works. And sometimes there were 6 buses there at once, and you're just waiting for someone to get crushed. So even though it had a severe negative impact on me, we can't go around smashing our riders either. So.
And we are looking for a solution that will be more advantageous to our customers. Any other comments? Yes, Director.
Perhaps we can have staff talk to them about that other issue.
Sure.
David or somebody.
That's it. Okay. Yes, perhaps staff can look into the other issue about the fraud organization. So, are there any other people who wish to testify? If not, we will move on to our consent calendar. And we have 2 items on the consent calendar tonight. And I believe that one item, approval of minutes, will be pulled, and we'll have a short discussion on that. So, do we have a motion to approve?
Wait, which one are we pulling, 1 or 2?
We're pulling item A, 1A.
1A. Move approval of item 2.
Been moved and second. Any comment? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So we'll move to item G, which is the approval of the minutes for the board meeting September 22nd, 2016. They were... Okay. Director Lincoln, would you?
I can explain this.
Yes.
There were just a few minor errors, just in mostly the characterization of what the amendments were, what the action that Salem was taking. And so I sent some changes to Linda, and she redid the minutes and the ones that you've got here with the red are the changed ones, and I think that looks fine. They're pretty much technical amendments.
Move approval as amended.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, the motion passes. So our next item of business is, we're into action items, and so I'll call on our general manager to introduce our first action item.
Sure. Jared Isaacson, our finance manager, will present item H.1.
Good evening, President Krebs and members of the board. As was discussed at the last work session, the district is in need of replacing its finance and HR software with a single solution. This solution would avoid duplicate effort on employee data entry, as well as provide us with adequate reporting capabilities and allow us to implement paperless processing within finance and HR. This project is being funded with federal 5307 capital funds, and as such, the procurement complied with the FTA requirements. 3 proposals were received and evaluated by the district's evaluation committee. The committee determined that Tyler Technologies' Munis software best fit the requirements of the RFP. And we propose that the board authorize the general manager to negotiate the final contract language and execute a contract with Tyler Technologies for a not-to-exceed amount of $346,540. Any questions?
Any questions or comments?
Pretty clear at the work session.
Thank you.
So,
I
Dr.
move
Ham.
the board authorize the general manager to negotiate the final contract language and to execute a contract with Tyler Technologies for the Munis software in the not-to-exceed amount of $346,540.
Second.
been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yes.
Just a
Scott.
clarification on the licenses, are the licenses a cost per year, or is it for hopefully 5 years on the?
The licenses are purchased with the initial purchase, and then we simply pay a maintenance upgrade fee each year.
Okay, so that's how you get around it, okay. I just was not wanting
Yes.
the licenses
Yes,
to be
sure.
per year.
I noticed that we only pay for a maintenance agreement for the first year. Are we planning on taking over what has to happen after that? Or are we planning on buying it year to year? Or?
The maintenance agreement will be part of the contract. It's just not in the initial dollars of the contract.
So it'll be in the normal operating budget.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
So for the first year, we're going to pay it out of 5307,
Yes.
but the future years will be out of operating funds.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it. Makes
Oh,
sense.
The $6,000.
And this replaces a service that we're already paying for.
Yes.
I mean, so it's a wash sort of as a,
Yes.
it's not a new expense, it's just replacing an expense that we have already.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments? And I guess we're ready for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. So we'll move on to item 2, H2, which is the proposed budget for calendar year 2018.
And Jared will continue on.
Thank you. Also, as discussed at the last work session, the proposed budget calendar as presented this evening complies with all budget law, publication, and procedural requirements. The Budget Committee work will begin at the orientation meeting on the 4th of May 2017. The orientation will be followed by up to 3 Budget Committee meetings on May 11th, May 18th, and June 1st if needed. Each of these meetings will begin at 6 p.m. After the Budget Committee has completed their process, they will present the budget to the board for adoption at the June 22nd board meeting. It is our recommendation that the board approve the budget calendar as outlined in the memo. Any
Do we have any
questions?
questions or comments?
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now we're on to reports, and I believe those are just to receive and file, and we're ready now to talk about our yes. I'll call on reports for our board committees, and the first committee is the Special Transportation Fund.
We canceled our meeting for September because there were no items on the agenda, but we will be meeting next week.
Thank you. And the Mid-Willamette Valley Area Commission on Transportation, Director Kelly.
The meeting in October was canceled. We have a meeting next week for November.
This is going fast. And Director Thompson, the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments.
Well, I had 2 meetings, so that makes up for it.
Okay, that's good.
Had the executive committee meeting and where we set the agenda for last week's meeting. And we had a regular board meeting where we went over, they've revised their employment or their employee manual. And it's many pages and it's very detailed, and we kind of wordsmithed it, so we had a very long meeting. But it's almost over with. The executive committee is going to finish it. But that was basically all that was.
Thank you. And I attended 2 Salem area Transportation Study Policy Committee meetings, and basically finishing up a lot of planning work that has to be completed to meet federal deadlines. And this last Tuesday we had a meeting that went over, it was one of the more interesting things was the plans for the improvements in Highway 22
Yes.
between 25th Street and Gaffin Road, and it includes an interchange where Cordon Road goes across Highway 22. Most of the other things on the well, one of the other concerns is the Department of Land Conservation and Development target rule concerning greenhouse gases, and this could have an effect on a lot of transportation issues in the state. And so we were going to have a special extended meeting next month, which will be on November 29th. Be extra 2 hours to go over this particular issue because it is very important, and we want to make sure that there's input from the metropolitan planning organizations, so this doesn't become something planned in a vacuum that is going to be very difficult to deal with, or an unfunded mandate. So that will be, if anybody's interested, there will be a extended meeting. Our normal meeting's an hour and a half, and this will probably be 3.5 hours, and it will take place at the COG headquarters on High Street, 100 High Street, starting at noon on November 29th. Other issues that came up was the planning a statement to support the OMPOC, which is the Oregon Metropolitan Planning Organization Consortium document that will be submitted to the legislature to support the transportation plan that's being developed. And we're developing statements to go along with that to support the transportation policy in this area. The next OMPOC meeting is scheduled for the 9th of December here in Salem, and that's to prepare documents for the legislative session. And that's going to be held at the ODOT building. Also, tomorrow is the last day to review the public transportation plan. I did send out the board a link if you want to look at that. But the ODOT Public Transportation Plan has an online open house until tomorrow. So if you didn't get that in my email, you can pick it up later. And if the public wants to go online, they can go onto the ODOT webpage and they can find that. But that's what I have to report about that. And the next item is the Oregon Metropolitan Planning Organization Consortium, and Director Bush attended that one
Yes,
this month.
right, October 7th. We're almost done with October. It was held in Bend, and we drove over the mountains in the rain and the yuck, and beautiful weather in Bend, and opposite going backwards. So we got there kind of late due to the weather and a couple other things, but we ended up talking about most of the stuff that Director Krebs just mentioned. The final rulemaking schedule for the FAST, Federal Fix America's, what does it stand for? Surface Transportation. The risk-based transit management plan is published in this month in October, and then the rule for bridges and pavements in December. So there's a note that after the 27th of 2018, a state or MPO may not adopt a transportation plan that has not been developed in accordance to this rule. So that was all new stuff to me. Again, we talked about the OMPOC support for the legislative work that's being done on the state level that's coming up. And we talked about safe routes to schools, statewide student pass for transit, the CMAQ program, and again, trying to find creative ways to fund this so that we could all get the things that are needed for our transportation systems. That's pretty much it. We did do a tour on the Deschutes River Trail and the Whitewater Park. I sent pictures to the board. It's really beautiful, and I learned that all the water in the Deschutes and the Columbia River specifically are all computer controlled through all the dams. And I went, really? But yep, they've controlled the flow for the farmers, for recreation, for business use, for getting the barges where they need to be at the right time. So it's pretty complicated. Yay, computers and technology, right? I think that's about it. Oh, they wanted to make sure that we all knew that they're updating the economic engines brochures of all the 6 MPOs in the states, and that we need to look at those and put our input into that. So I think our staff was supposed to be taking care of that. Yes, I'm done.
Thank you. That concludes the committee reports, and so now I'll call on our general manager for his.
Yeah, I just have a couple items to report. I do have a bit of sad news. Pat Miller, one of our former transit operators, who was here for about 5 years and left a little over a year ago, passed away on Friday of illness. So the operators, led by Harry McFadden, have little ribbons to recognize him for a few days. Services are still pending, so we don't know anything on that. This is the holiday season, so we changed things up. So just a reminder, our next board meeting is December 8th. There is none in November. We do that combined one, so a work session in November and a board meeting in December. And also a reminder, no service on Thanksgiving Day, but we will be in full service on Friday. And with that, concludes my report.
Thank you. And my report's fairly simple. I missed the work session that was kind of interesting topic there because I was working in Switzerland and working with transit systems in Switzerland with a tourism package, and so I had experience with transit systems in Bern, Lucerne, Lausanne, St. Moritz, and Zurich over a 9-day period. So saw how their systems worked, and I sent you out with my note today the streetcar with the skeletons on the side. I thought that was good for Halloween. Actually, that's an advertisement for a orthopedic medical service, but I thought it was a great Halloween scene. I put in about, even being gone for 11 days, I put in 17 and 3/4 hours on transit stuff and 10 and a half hours on other civic things. So still keeping busy. And with that, I will call on Director Thompson.
Thank you. I just want to say I appreciate your sending out all that information from SCATS. That was very informative, especially the Highway 22 and the various things and all the little maps with the little arrows going each way. That was really interesting. Thank you. I didn't do a whole lot. I was gone for a week also, but I was fortunate enough to be back for the meeting that you were discussing. I did attend the Chamber Forum and the City Club last time, and then all the COG activities. So it was really a fairly easy transit month for me.
Director Kelly?
Well, we had the work session as well as the special meeting. I also attended 2 Salem City Club meetings related to the election, and 2 demo forums. Representative Schroeder spoke at the demo forum on Wednesday, and I had an opportunity to thank him for his continued support of Salem Keizer Transit in the process of asking a question. I also have been attending the last 2, and there's one more left, meetings on Salem organizing itself so that everybody knows what's going on with resources for refugees as Catholic Charities and Lutheran Community Services are resettling refugees that the State Department has vetted and that Oregon is taking in. And Chariots has been prominent in the discussion on getting people to be able to ride the bus and know how to ride the bus. And so it's been fairly good. I've had to sort of say, no, that's not quite exactly how we offer service, but a couple of times, because people thought that you could just call up and they'd come to the door. No, there's something different in West Salem, but to call up and get picked up at the door, you have to have ADA. So it was helpful to be there because at least we have some good information going. And some people want to learn how to ride the bus so that they can work with the families that they're working with. This is volunteers. So in the future, I will probably put together a little group to take some trip on the bus and show them so that they know, because it's always helpful to have somebody else take that one step forward doing that. So, and past that point, I've sort of done a fair amount of community service with my Kiwanis group because I'm now the president for this year. So it will be a busy year.
Thank you. Director Adams.
Yeah, I was able to attend the West Salem Business Association meeting today, listen to Brian Boquist, the state senator, speak a little bit on transit and how it relates to Measure 97 and transportation more than transit. Had an opportunity to use the transit facilities in San Francisco for 3 days. That was fun, and I thought it was. We also attended the PGA tournament in Napa, where there's very little or no parking, and so the shuttle system that they had worked out was extremely efficient. So I thought, well, we could learn some lessons from how organized and timely they were there. They had little shuttles similar to the Connect in West Salem. I met with Mr. Pollock on the work session prior to that, and then managed the work session that we all experienced.
Special meeting.
It was fun. And that's about it. Thank you.
Director Hamill.
All right. I attended many of the things that have already been discussed, but I had 2 items that probably I was the only board member to get involved with, so I'll talk about them. I spent about 2 hours at the CCTV studio over here on Trade. The event was making a video for use in training Salem Keizer Transit bus drivers in how to interact with blind people. And the three organizations involved were Blind Skills, the American Council of the Blind's local chapter, and Salem Keizer Transit's mobility training department. And it was, it's probably been 40 years since I've been in a TV studio, and there have been many changes since then. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the outcome of that is. The one thing that came up repeatedly was how close blind people are to being lost at any given moment. A period of inattention or distraction or interaction, you lose count of your blocks, you lose count of your steps, and you're disoriented. And when you're disoriented, the next thing that happens is panic, and then try and deal as a bus driver with a panicked passenger. So that was interesting in how frequently it was mentioned. The player that stole the show was a 9.5-year-old black Labrador retriever named Sky, whose person told a number of stories about riding the bus, and every time Sky's name was mentioned, he would sit up and look at his person and look at the camera, and really stole the show pretty much. I hope it doesn't all get on the cutting room floor. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was I've been buttonholed many times about the carts redesign that we're working on. I'm probably not the only one in the board who has had that experience. And the comment that I wanted to make is that the distress that the people in Gates and elsewhere beyond Staten are expressing is just part of a larger societal problem, and that is what we're going to do regarding disadvantaged rural areas, which they certainly qualify as. And the long and short of it is it's a bigger problem than transit can solve. So I'm looking forward to the work session on this topic next month.
Thank you. Director Lincoln?
It's been a busy month. One thing, though, that I want to mention is I attended the Chuck Marone talk here and then the talk at the library that evening, and it was fascinating, really interesting stuff. And the lecture at the library was almost full. Lots of people there, lots of enthusiasm, and I really appreciate Chariot's participation in bringing him here. That was a big thing for this town, I think, and there's still a lot of talk going on, and his books have circulated, and so I think that was a real good event, good thing for us to sponsor. Went to City Club last week, heard that Secretary of State discussion. That was real interesting. Of course, I worked on the testimony for the bridge hearing and went to the hearing on the 12th. Stayed for most of it. I don't know how long it lasted, but
3 hours.
3 hours. There were, I don't know, maybe 100 people in the audience, almost that many people, decision makers up front, so it was quite a show. Also attended the Oregon Public Transportation Plan workshop the other day in the Chemeketa Center downtown, and that was a real interesting discussion too. We had quite a talk at our table. Steve Dickey was there and talked about, one of them was rural area issues and how the problems with, because of funding, you can only serve this area. I mean, we can serve Marion County, we can only serve this side of the river and not the other side of the river, even though, we kind of go up the canyon. And those are all funding silos that dictate where you can spend your money and how you can spend it. So, of course, as always, money seems like the bottom of the problem for any public service. But I'm hoping that plan, or that process, it'll be interesting to see how that process plays out. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Director Bush.
Okay. Well, I attended many of the things. It's already been mentioned, including the OMPAC travel. I went to the special meeting on the river crossing issue and sat there with, on the other side of the room, but with Kathy and cheered her on. I attended several city council, Keizer City Council, Keizer Chamber events. Let's see. I got to tour the Liberty House this month, and that was very interesting. I'd never been there. I'd gone to the luncheon the month prior, so decided to go and see what that's all about. It's very, very good work for our community. And it just helps me remember that there's a lot of volunteer work behind the scenes that we don't always see, and we need to remember those folks and cheer them on as well. At the ODOT listening meeting that Director Lincoln talked about, one of the people at our table brought up having a uniform card that you just use here at this transit place, and then you can take over here and use it at that one, and money being deducted from that. And I visited with Alan a little bit about that, so it could be somewhere down the future. Who knows? I did a lot of volunteer work. Got to do my outdoor school week and spend time with sixth graders talking about science outside. And then one of the greeters events we went to, Bud Pierce was there, candidate for governor, and he talked about his platform to about 30 to 35 of us and got well informed in that area. So remember to vote. Make your statement. That's all.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board members? I might mention that I've been approached by several people on the extension or the cart service up to the canyon also, and that is something that we're going to be dealing with at the next work session. So,
Yeah.
it's also one of the arguments for the statewide funding to fund some of these rural areas that are in desperate need of accessible service.
Yeah.
Well, if I hear nothing else from the group, I think we've concluded our agenda, so we'll adjourn the meeting.
All right.
That was quick.